Hey, this is Glenn again from Endless Innovations and Machine Apparel Company. So, the last time we met, the last time you guys were watching this, we got the throttle bracket pretty much machined the way we needed it. We took most of the material away from here. We got it squared up to size on the top, around the contour. So what we're going to do today is we're going to get it basically to its next shape with the threaded holes in it, or the through holes in it, to actually get it mounted to the Jeep. So there's a couple things we have to do yet. We have to get this piece removed from the base of the raw stock that I started with. We have to get some of this material away because this is the pattern basically. Let me orient this correctly. This is the part, how it's going to sit when it's actually machined. So we're going to have the two through holes here and the bracket itself. So all this material has to go away yet. And we have to put the contour on this side yet to actually give us our corner radiuses and our top radiuses. So what I'm going to do initially is I was thinking about taking this base plate, cutting it off, getting rid of it right away, but the more I thought about it, I still have to put these two holes in, which are actually slotted in the model to give us some adjustment. There's a couple of holes that go here yet that I have to put in. So I think my first approach is going to be to put this back in the machine and put the three holes in that are going to take in this face, and I'm actually going to put the through holes in the slotted holes, and then I'll actually get rid of this base material, and then on the bandsaw I'm just going to cut the majority of this material away. And the reason I'm going to do that is right now I have, if you look down the side, I have a nice profile to hold on to in the vise, so when I'm putting in these holes and these slotted holes, I have something good to grab onto. Once I cut this away and I cut this material out, that's all I'm going to be hanging on to is this little end section here, and this is going to be hanging out in space. So I hate breaking it up into multiple operations like that, but for this particular job, it seems like that's the best way to handle this one piece. So once we get that done, then we'll actually put it back in the machine. We'll finish contouring this, which will just be taking out the cut from the saw, so there won't be a lot of material removal, and then we'll run the contour that puts this top in. And that's really all that's left to do on this bracket here. And then we'll get it installed in the Jeep, and then we'll go from there. So I think that's what we'll start with, and then we'll see where it goes from there. This will probably be the last project on the Jeep for a couple videos, depending. We do have our first design project starting, so the next video you see me in that we'll be shooting down here at the shop will be me running through what that design project is and what the engineers that are coming down, what they're actually going to be making and how they're going to make it and what their challenge is going to be. We have one engineer going through it right now as kind of a pilot to kind of prove out the concept and refine the process for doing it, ask some questions about how we have it set up. But we'll talk about that in another video. So let's get started on this and see where it heads up. So I'm going to head back to the shop. We'll get it set up probably in the track initially just to put these holes in, and then we'll go to the machining center. Okay, so we're out here at the track machine, and I decided to do everything pretty much on the track. The only thing I'm not going to do on the track, I don't think, is this profile right here. And basically I took this template I had and I laid it out and I just drew a Sharpie line just so I knew when I got over to the bandsaw how much material I needed to take away and kind of a guide for me. But I decided that I'm going to do the holes that go here, the slotted holes that go here, and the contour that's up through here, and the rest of this profile. I'm going to do all on the track machine. And the reason I'm going to do that is it's easy to set up. It's fully capable of doing this as opposed to getting a whole machining center up and running to do that. So what I did was, and this is the nice part about actually designing your own part, I guess, and putting it in the shop. And I'm not sure how clear this is. But I did a quick drawing, which is upside down. I did a quick drawing of the part that we're going to be doing here. And I identified where my 0, point is going to be, which is basically this corner of my part. So basically we'll be laying in the vise like this, and it'll be this corner we'll be taking all of our 0, or all of our measurements from. So I dimensioned everything off of this edge being 0, at that top corner. And then when I went over to the slotted holes, you would not dimension a part like this for manufacturing, but I just did it for myself because it's easy for me to figure out what I want to do. And what I mean by that is you can see that I have the 1/4 inch slots over on this side over here. Then I have this goofy dimension, which is a tangent line off of a 1/4 inch diameter hole and a distance, I'm going to move over to get the edge of my slot. And for me, it's easy because then I can just bring my end mill right to the center of that hole, move it over 200 thou in one direction, 200 thou in the other direction, and I get my slot, as opposed to dimensioning that with a whole different dimension scheme. And again, this works here in the shop because we designed the part here and we're going to machine it here, so if there's any questions, it's easy to answer. So again, we're going to do these slots on the track, these 3 holes here, and this finishing contour all on the track machine. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to get it set up in the vise, indicated in, and I'm not going to talk as much through this one. I'm just going to basically just go through the motions and maybe throw some dialogue in there a little bit, but for the most part I'm just going to machine. So this is where we're going to go right now. I know I said I wasn't going to talk in this one as much, but this is that little technique where I'm just going 200,000 side to side off of that center hole that I drilled with the 1/4 inch drill. So basically once I get my end mill in place, I know instead of doing the calculation of seeing where the center line of my tool is going to be, I'm basically walking 200 thousandths in one direction, 200 thousandths in the other direction, and that's giving me my slot width. So I just wanted to show you that real quick because, like I said, it's not a conventional way of dimension of drawing. It's just an easy way for us to determine some features and get them done quickly when we're setting up drawings here in the shop. So that's what I'm just doing right now. I'm just going 200,000 side to side in each part just to get the slot in there. So I'm at 6 inches right now, so I go 6 inches 200 in one direction, and then I go 5 inches 800 in the other direction, and then go down to another depth and do it again. This is something I really didn't have in the drawing, but it's just something I practice anyways. I'm just chamfering the edges just to break them a little bit. Just to get a little bit of rid of the burr that was on there from the milling. Okay, so there's what we got so far. I just put the slots in. Let me see if I can zoom up a little bit there so you can get a little better view. So there's the slots. Like I said, I just added these chamfers around the outside here just to break the edge. So next thing we're going to do is, since these are 1/4 inch holes over here, I'm going to use the same setup. The dimensions are off the same location, off the edge over to these holes is where I'm going now. So there's a couple 1/4 inch holes that are going to be in here, a 1/2 inch hole. And then you might have noticed I stuck this out. I don't know if I can move back a little bit here. I stuck this part out hanging over the vise, and I put a jack stand underneath it to support it, because when I come in here to do this contouring, because this has this shape to it, this part is sitting below the vise. So in order for me to clamp onto this section up here, this had to be sitting below the vise, and if I would have clamped on here, I wouldn't have been hanging on to enough to actually be able to do this actual full contour. So that's why I got it sticking out, and like I said, I put a jack stand under it just so I can push up on this with a little bit of pressure to keep load on it, just to keep the chatter down as I'm machining. So that's where we're heading next. We're going to put these 2 holes in, and then we'll set up to do the contour, and then we'll go from there. Okay, we're back here. I'm going to talk a little bit here. What I did was, you can see that we got the slotted holes in here. I did add the 3 holes over here, the half hole and the 2/4 inch holes. Now what I've done is, I did have to make a little change. If you can see from the drawing here, maybe or maybe not, the full radius here of this contour actually goes close to the center line of these holes. And originally I had this part where the holes were almost inside the vise here. So I had to shift this whole thing out, reestablish my 2 edges to get my 0 so I could establish my contour. So what I did was I just programmed the track to basically run this contour tree here, or contour path, and it seems to run pretty good. I'll show you what it looks like over the part, and then we'll do a quick pass, and then I'll run it, get it done, and we'll get this thing keep going. Okay, so I got it in place here, and again, this is above the part, hopefully, and I'll just show you how it runs. So we'll just run it. I got it in. So again, this is just running that profile around the part, and we'll take maybe 4 or 5 passes at this. I did make the tool, it's a 1/2 inch diameter tool. I made the tool in the program 515 thousandths of an inch, and that basically what it'll do, it'll keep the tool away from the part, 15 thousandths, so I can take a final pass by just changing the tool diameter. It'll bring it actually back into the actual contour that I need, and it gives me some visual to how the tool is actually cutting. So basically that's the pass. So let's take a pass and see what it does. So it looks pretty good. It's hanging out a little bit. I do have the jack underneath it to try to take up some of the vibration, to keep preload on this end over here. And oh, that seems to work pretty well. So let's take a little deeper pass and see what happens. That's really good. All right, well, I'm going to keep cutting this, we'll get it the size, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about what we're going to do next. Alright, so we're about to take our final pass here. I don't know if you can see up here, you can see that there's a little point here, and basically that's because, like I said, I set my tool diameter to be 515 thousandths. So again, the bigger tool, when you work in the offset, actually will keep the tool off the part a little further. So I just changed the setup and made my tool actually 505, just to bring that tool in a little more. So this should be our final pass to get us to the contour that we need. Actually, there's still a little bit of a point there, so I'm going to take the tool exactly at a 1/2 inch and let it cut one more time, and then I think we'll be set. Okay, so that looks pretty good there. We can blend that in, but I think that'll do it. It's cutting on all surfaces now, even on that bottom side there. The final pass is taking material off of that, and that's what we really wanted it to do, to actually get a nice blend there. So let's finish this up and then we'll go from there. Okay, here's our part so far. So basically we've got our contour. It's still got a little bit of a point here. I didn't want to make the tool too small. I wanted to keep this top surface pretty clean. So we can always just hit that with some Scotch-Brite. I'll blend that in. But again, here's the contour we ran. Here's the slotted holes. We have our through holes here. So next thing we're going to do is, again, I kind of marked out here the material that's going to be removed by our next contouring path, which I think I'm going to do in the track again. It just seemed to work really well and was simple enough. So what I need to do now is just saw off a lot of this material and this bottom so we can true up the bottom and then run this final contour, and then we can give the part a test drive or a test fit on the Jeep. So let's cut this up real quick and then we'll take it back on the mill. Here's our rough cut. So now we'll get it back on the mill. We'll true up this side on the bottom here, get it to width across this section, spit it out, and then we'll set up to run this contour. Just so you notice, I'm coming off this side of the part this time because this is actually a chewed up side. This is my saw cut side. So even though my contour is going to be running around this inside, I can't touch off this side like I did last time. I got to touch off this face to make my 0-0 on this machine surface out here, so I can actually cut to the size I need on this saw cut. Just in case you're wondering. Alright, so there's the final part. Let me see if I can get a little better view of it. So we'll get it out of the vise. The contour came out really nice. Cleaned up everything. That's all I gotta do is that's all I gotta do is break these edges now. They're a little chattery or chamfery, or no, there's burrs on them basically. If they were chamfers, I wouldn't have to burn. So they got burrs on them, so I'm just gonna hit those on the wheel real quick, and then we'll take it up front. We'll do a test fit, and then I think we're gonna be done with this project. So let me get this thing cleaned up, get the mill cleaned up, and then we'll meet you up front. So here's the final product. Here's the bracket. I Scotch-brighted it all up, did some blending, and what I ended up doing was, originally I tap drilled these for 832 on the top for how I thought I wanted to mount the bracket. But after looking at the bracket, it made more sense to actually come in through the back side with some 632s than it did on the top. So real quickly, that's all I did was I just added some 632 on the back here that will actually mount this bracket to. So basically it'll be mounted on something like this through those two holes, and then our cable will go through there. But that is the bracket. Came out really nice. I think it came out like we expected it to. Everything looks the size. We ended up not using these holes here, which is fine. They still add a little bit of effect and kind of look cool. So I'm going to go over to the Jeep now, and we'll put it on, and we'll see how everything lines up, see what it looks like on the Jeep, and I think we can close this one out. So let's head over to the Jeep. Okay, I took some time here to get this thing installed in the Jeep. So this is what it looks like. I'll try to take a couple different views here so you can see where we're at. If I look down on it, you can see that our throttle cable here lines up pretty straight with the bracket. Gives us all the clearance we need. That was one of the concerns, and now you can see what I was talking about when I was talking about that, trying to follow the curve of the carburetor, and just, you know, miking up that gasket. Gave us a pretty good approximation of that radius. So that actually lines up pretty good. Like I said, it's running back pretty straight, backward to the top bracket. So if we look at it from the side, get this camera in view here, you can see that our throttle shield here, or housing, and the cable run pretty straight to the bracket that we made. So this is what the bracket looks like when it's installed from the side. So you can see here's our throttle plate. This is that top that has the slotted holes here. We ended up adjusting it back, or forward actually a little bit, just to get this throttle clip here for the housing exactly where we needed it to keep tension on there. So it looks like it came out pretty nice. And if I go in here, if I reach around and see if I can keep the camera on it while I reach, let's find the throttle. So this is the throttle here. So you can see that we get pretty much full pull of the throttle, which is, you know, key also. So we wanted to make sure we got full throttle out of where we had the adjustments. So other than that, I think it turned out really well. So pretty well, not really well, pretty well. So that is the throttle bracket that we made. And some might say it's overkill, but hey, you know what? It did exactly what we needed it to do. Gave us a place to actually mount the bracket, which was the limitation here, this little clip. We had nowhere to mount it anywhere else in the Jeep. So yeah, it worked out well. So that's it for this project. Like I said earlier, we might not have another project right away. We do have the design competition that we're setting up for some engineers locally here. So I'll be videotaping some of that. In the next video, I'm going to kind of lay out how I actually laid that, or how I actually put that little project together and what the intent of it is. And I'm probably going to make one myself per the specs, just to see how it looks, and then we'll go from there. But other than that, that's the throttle bracket. That project's done, and we will have more on this Jeep. Stay tuned.